So we're going to get into the Milky Way galaxy in just a moment here, but just a little detour before we do that. And this, I actually just added this about, let me see how long ago, like an hour and a half ago, I added this part to this presentation because I really wanted to explore the concept of time travel a little bit. Time travel. Well, we have now found out that as we go closer to the speed of light, time begins to warp and it seems to slow down for that individual object. If I was standing somewhere in the middle of some stadium and you were going around me at light speed travel and you went around me for years, what seemed like years for me, chances are you would stop traveling and you would be the same age or just a tiny bit older than the moment you started. But I'll be, say that you've been driving around me for 10 years, I'll be 10 years older, right? So when you go closer and closer to the speed of light, time begins to slow down. And the belief is when you get to the speed of light, time stops. So if you're able to travel at the speed of light, it may take you years, but you would not age. That is one of the theories. Theoretically, at the speed of light, time stops because you're traveling at the same speed as the light. So if time is just a reflection of the light that comes to my eyes and the distance that it traveled, if I'm traveling at the same speed as the light, I'm traveling at the same speed that the time is basically going forward. So the theory is that we would not age. And then also time travel, there are theories that bending space-time, if we're able to bend space and time somehow, create some sort of device, we can actually jump ahead in distance within our universe and actually go forward and back in time. And also wormholes, traveling through wormholes, FTL travel, which is faster than light travel, and then going through parallel dimensions in order to go time. These are some of the theories of ways that we can have time travel. And then some other components of what is believed to maybe happen if we were to time travel. So let's be theoretical right now. Let's just say that we were able to time travel, and what would happen? So here are a few different scenarios that I outlined that are theories of what could actually occur during a time travel moment. So you can go back in time to this timeline right here, right now, right? So you're in this timeline right here, and I go back to the same timeline that I'm in, and I make a change that changes this moment that I'm in right now. So go back in time, and then all of a sudden, when I go back to this time right here, the moment has been changed and everything shifts. This is very similar. Actually, this is the one from Back to the Future, basically. This is like, okay, I go back in time, made a mistake. Biff got the magazine with all the sports numbers in it for the next decade or whatever, becomes rich. I go back into my future. He's married my mom, right? That was Back to the Future. And he's rich and he hates me. So that is the one from Back to the Future right there. And then another one is when you can go back in time, you can actually jump into another parallel timeline and it does not affect the past of your current time. So if you went back in time right now from this moment here, instead of going back to the same timeline, it's not possible. All parallel realities, all parallel dimensions exist simultaneously. So the moment that you're traveling back to is actually existing right now. So you move back to a different timeline that then has a whole different outcome, but you don't actually affect the timeline you came from. The timeline you came from is missing you because you've gone now. When you go back in time, you go to here's number 3. When you go back in time, you go to the same timeline, but when you make a change, it breaks off into a new timeline. And then there are now 2 distinct timelines from the original timeline. So you can go back in time right now and you do not do anything different. You just like hang out, you watch, and then you come back and everything's fine. But you go back in time and then you maybe stop something from happening. Then when you come back in time, you don't go back to your same timeline. You go back to a parallel timeline that you've just created. That's theory number 3. And then if we were to go faster than light, theoretically, we're able to go back in time. So if we go as fast as the speed of light, now we are at the same speed of time. But if we go faster than the speed of light, technically time should start reversing. And that's what happens when we have black holes and wormholes, where time bends, light bends. A great example of time travel is the fact that the sunlight from our sun takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds to arrive at our eyes, which means that we're seeing the sun how it was about 8 minutes ago. So time travel is happening all the time. if they're, as a kid growing up, I would hear in my science class on occasion that if the sun supernovaed, right, it would take us 8 minutes and 20 seconds before we even felt the effects or even see the supernova in the sky. So there's some sort of time dilation going on there. So time travel is happening all the time. There's some scientists now. And the reason why I'm getting into time travel is because there's actually some new information on time travel that I'm about to share with you. The universe, time travel paradox, the universe will cease to exist if you see yourself. That's another theory of time travel. So you've probably seen time travel movies before in which the individual goes back in time and they're like, oh, do not see yourself. Do not interact with your younger self. It will create a paradox and the universe as we know it will cease to exist. First of all, that was just done completely for dramatic effects. So it's not like those studios were looking into the science. So, but however, a lot of people have this belief now, and it's actually shared within scientific community, something called the grandfather complex. Do not see yourself do not go back in time and see yourself, timelines will collapse and all the universe will collapse. So new studies are showing that this is probably not true. Here is some research that came out back in September of 2020. So only like 5 months ago. And I'm going to read a little bit from this. Okay, say you traveled in time and attempted to stop the current world situation from being exposed to this thing. However, if you stop that individual from becoming infected, that would eliminate the motivation for you to go back and stop the pandemic in the first place. So that includes a paradox right there. It's an inconsistency. So if you go back and stop something, the whole purpose of you even going there in the first place no longer exists and everything could collapse as we know it. Or we have the grandfather paradox in which a time traveler kills their own grandfather in the process of preventing the time traveler's birth in the first place. So the logical paradox has given researchers a headache, in part because according to Einstein's theory of general relativity, closed timeline curves are possible. But these researchers say that a paradox wouldn't necessarily exist because events would adjust themselves. So I'm just going to show you these two articles and comment on here right now. So what they're doing through their research, including research with the Hydrogen Collider in Geneva, is that they're realizing, or they believe that when you actually go back in time, all the things that occur, any issues or any situations that you shift and change will actually automatically correct themselves to have the same outcome. Say you go back in time and then you stop Kennedy from being assassinated. What happens in the universe is that the universe does not want to create a paradox in that moment. So all these other elements will shift in order to bring the same outcome to the timeline that you're at. So this is now what researchers are saying in regards to their research for time travel. Yeah, time is a linear phenomena, but then if we go into different dimensions where there's another element of time could still exist, but maybe it's a little more fluid, or maybe there are 3 points of time rather than just having two components.